Do you believe in love at first sight? Of course not. Only stupid girls with a lot of free time believe in this nonsense. They read these novels and watch sweet movies about love, dreaming of that very guy who will make them tremble with one smile. You know them. They might be single and never find the one, or they might marry the guy who was right for them because he was nice and had a decent job. No matter who these women are or what situation they are in, this idea of love at first sight makes them vulnerable to wolves that prey on beautiful lambs. This belief that there is that very person with whom you will feel instant love if you just look at them is the perfect lure for fishermen like me. Have you noticed that love at first sight only happens to attractive people? The covers of the novels usually feature a shirtless guy with long blonde hair and the muscles of a Greek god. He'll be hugging a woman who probably looks like Heather Graham or Reese Witherspoon. Have you ever seen a couple like Roseanne and Dan on the cover? Things are no better with films. A woman usually finds her true love in a dark-haired, handsome actor who would have women lined up to sleep with him in the middle of Times Square at noon. Even teen movies that try to convey the message that true love isn't physical have a shy girl in the plot who is actually very hot but wears glasses and wears her hair in a ponytail. Halfway through the movie, she takes off those glasses and lets her ponytail down. Only then does she realize that she is truly beautiful. Everyone talks about her inner beauty, but isn't it funny how her beauty was only recognized when she became beautiful on the outside? There are billions of people on this planet. If I had to take a wild guess, I'd estimate that about 30% of them are probably considered good-looking. By good-looking, I mean average to decent build with a moderately attractive face. I would guess that only 10% of the population can be called beautiful. You see them in Hollywood and on posters in children's bedrooms or hidden discreetly in the stash of your father's adult films. You can even see them in the gym. These are the people that ordinary people self-satisfy in solitude. Even though they make up only a small portion of our population, everyone associates love with them. Nobody thinks of a short, balding 40-year-old man or an overweight 50-year-old woman as potential candidates for love at first sight. According to these unconfirmed guesses, there remains a huge 60% of the world's population who will never fall in love at first sight. So if love is blind, why is most of the planet excluded from potential opportunities? Of course, there is more to the love at first sight mentality. You see, we as humans are fundamentally selfish. When we encounter a situation, our first thoughts are always about how this situation affects us and makes us feel. We may have a thought about how we influence the situation, but usually this thought is a distant second thought or even an afterthought. So the love at first sight mentality usually focuses on how the person we're in love with makes us feel. Rarely does anyone care how we make them feel. With this in mind, the concept of love at first sight comes with the hope that our ideal person, who will fulfill all our fantasies and desires, will see through all our imperfections. If you ask 10 people what their ideal person would be like, I guarantee that 8 of them will describe some variation of the same person. Let me give you an example. If a woman were to describe her ideal guy, he would be tall, with a slim body, with a pretty good job, funny, kind, and caring. He would be a sensitive guy, but one who has the courage to take the initiative when she wants it, like this. I would bet that I have described 90% of the ideal for women. Notice how none of these qualities even affect how he treats her or how he feels about her. All these qualities relate to how he makes her feel. So, to be the perfect guy, half of it comes down to genetics. You can have all the other qualities, but if you don't have the physical attributes, then you will be the one she puts up with. Hey, don't be mad at me. I'm just telling it like it is. If a guy with great genes can pretend he has other qualities, he will likely outshine the poor fool who is actually a good guy, but not so blessed with looks. And this is where I come into play. You see, physically I am that same guy. I'm 6'3", 195 pounds of pure man meat, and have a smile that could melt a nun's panties. Am I narcissistic? You can say that. But damn, if you slept with as many girls as I did, you'd think so too. Now, good looks aren't everything. Don't let locker room talk and rumors fool you. I didn't win all the sex awards I had just by blinking my eyes and flexing my pecs. I learned that to be a high achiever, you have to be more than that, or look like this. Despite all the stories you read on these sites, women rarely want a man who is only good for sex. We think this way because it is a masculine trait. We may meet a woman who looks like sex on legs, but is smarter than a box of rocks, and we will ruin our marriages for her. We all know this is true. Women are different. Even if they are only looking for a sexual partner, they want him to have more than just sex. They usually choose a man they might fall in love with, but they deceive themselves that it's just to satisfy a need. That's why I mastered the art of weapons of love at first sight. The most rewarding targets in bed aren't girls who give in without a fight. What's the point of driving a Ferrari that only costs $5,000 and already has 200,000 miles on it? Of course we will drive it, but it won't be special. No, the most rewarding targets are those who believe in this ridiculous theory. Those who will allow themselves to relax only if they find him. They are like an unexplored source of erotic desire, waiting to be discovered. When they find the man of their dreams, all those stupid inhibitions that have accumulated over years of preaching and parental warnings dissolve. All the dirty things they really want to do don't seem less taboo with him. Secretly, when they fantasize about doing these things, he is the face and body they use as a prop. He can make them do almost anything. With him, she will feel like the girl she always wanted to be. Doing all these obscene things with him will be exactly like in her fantasies. For example, a rape fantasy is sexy when it involves a guy who looks like Antonio Banderas. It's just violence when a guy looks like Jim Belushi. This fact remains true for most women, even married ones. No, let me rephrase that, especially for married people. You see, most women do not marry the man of their dreams. They marry a pale copy of him. He may have some of the qualities of their first choice, but not all of them. They fall in love with him and settle for a life of mediocrity. They become content with the fact that they have the best they could get. Then they meet me. There are a few rules to remember when you're seducing one of these naive fools. You have to make them believe the myth. They want to believe in him. They will meet you halfway. You just need to give them an unspoken promise that you are the guy of their dreams. You have the inner qualities of what a good guy should be, and you're wrapped in a nicer package than what they have at home. If you give it to them, they will fill in the blanks and make themselves believe the lie. 1. Patience is the key. These women believe that true love will wait until they overcome their Puritan upbringings. You can't rush them into sex. In fact, you should seem quite reluctant to take this step. Let them think that they are actually seducing you. 2. Always look them in the eye. In fact, make sure you know their color. Sure, you can appreciate her body, but make it a secondary consideration. You can tell a woman that she has nice breasts, and she might allow you to have sex with her. If you tell her that her eyes are beautiful, she will make love to you. 3. Find out what she is unsure about. It may take some light questioning, but the results are worth it. When you find out what she's not sure about, just ignore it and act like it doesn't exist. For example, if she is insecure about her weight, then tell her how beautiful she looks in that dress. If she mentions her love handles, then talk about how unattractive skinny girls are because they have nothing to grab onto. If she has small breasts, tell her that large breasts are too heavy to handle. Plus, you love butts. 4. This goes along with point 3. Find out what she is proud of and praise it to the skies. If she's a smart girl, tell her how much you enjoy listening to her talk about books for hours. If she has lost a few pounds, tell her that she was beautiful before, but now you need to constantly remind yourself that she is married. If she got a new hairstyle, tell her that it really highlights her face and makes her look angelic. 5. Be sure to share your vulnerability with them. You can make it up, of course. Pretend you've never talked about this before and you can't believe how comfortable you are with her. The one I use is my mom crying because my dad left. I talk about how this affected me when I was young and made me want to never do that to a woman. Stupid girls eat it up. 6. Never, under any circumstances, speak ill of her husband. This is where most guys go wrong. They try to convince their wife claims that they are better than what she has at home. This is a mistake. In this case, you are fighting from a disadvantageous position. He already has an advantage. She already knows his good sides. If this guy isn't a total loser, you're doomed to fail. I choose a different path. It takes longer, but it works. If she sleeps with a guy who criticizes her husband, he will be the one she sleeps with once and regrets. She will be so burdened with guilt that she will return to him and try to be the perfect wife. I'm the one with whom she will start an affair. She won't feel guilty about having sex with me. By the time I'm done with her, she'll feel like she deserves it. I never say anything bad about her asshole husband. On the contrary, I praise him. I take his side. I give her advice on how to improve their marriage. I always defend him when she criticizes him. Then, when she tells me what's missing in her marriage, I give her advice about what would work for me if I were in her place. I mentioned how I wish a woman would do these things for me. This makes them come closer to me because we have something in common. At the same time, I plant the idea in her mind about doing these things for me. I end up saying something like, I can't imagine any guy not noticing this. He'd have to be dead not to get horny. Point 6 is the main one. Here you come between her and her husband. This is your moment. If you've gotten to this point with her, she's very vulnerable. There is something missing in her marriage, even if she doesn't realize it. Whatever it is, you become it. If he doesn't listen to her, then you listen like no one else, even if it's boring. If he doesn't pay attention to her, you do. By not criticizing your husband, you make her feel like you truly care about her happiness and have her best interests in mind. At the same time, you pose no threat. Her asshole husband probably won't change no matter what you tell her to do. If they lived with his behavior this way for so long, he was already established in his habits. Having become what she lacks, she will see his failures and begin to wish he was more looks like you. Now he will be in a losing situation. If he suddenly changes, she will thank you. But his attention will be temporary, and she will return. If he doesn't change, she will begin to view you as the kind of man she would like her husband to be. The best part about this is that if he notices what you're up to and complains, she will defend you by saying that you never spoke ill of him. You will always be the good guy, and he will be the irrational jerk. You can even voluntarily step away for a while so she can work on her relationship. After all, if being friends with you is causing her pain, you will care enough about her to let her go. You will end up without advice and say something like, I wish I could help you. If only he could see you the way I see you. If she isn't ready for sex after this, you might want to move on to another target. Now, there are exceptions to every rule. Even with all this arsenal at my disposal, I cannot conquer them all. Sometimes life gets in the way. Unforeseen variables that I didn't count on can pop up and ruin all my hard work. It also happens. Take this one bitch I worked with. Oh, wait a minute. You don't know who I am yet. Well, let me introduce myself. Then I'll tell you about this bitch and her cowardly husband. My name is Brian Kelfer. I joined the Navy at 18 years old. I would have liked to join earlier, but I was underage. Leaving home was the best decision of my life. So, I became a naval medic. I requested an assignment to a naval unit that needed a medic. Once this was approved, I switched to Sea Greens. The term simply means that I was a Navy guy who did everything the Marines did. I have to say that I liked it better than serving ashore at the Naval Hospital. The differences between the Navy and Marines begin at the point of entry. You join the Navy. You become a Marine. Hoorah! So I served for 8 years and was given an honorable discharge as HM2. I won't list all the awards I got because most of them are not important. I was able to take some classes while I served and completed my education after my discharge to become a nurse. I do sports every day. I got used to this when I was in my unit. I have a six-pack and I jog all the time. Exercising is easy when you work in a hospital because they have several gyms that they use to rehabilitate some of their patients. Because I served, people automatically treat me with respect. Women always secretly wonder if I killed anyone, and men always want to hear some war stories. I don't know why people are so attracted to what happens there. Half of them wouldn't have the courage to deal with what's going on there, so they live through one of my stories. They then say a blank, "Thank you for your service," and continue talking about something else. Most of the stories I tell are true. Sometimes I have to embellish some details, but mostly I don't lie. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the guy that husbands argue about with their wives, and the guy that wives gossip about with their girlfriends. I am a nightmare for a jealous husband and a wet dream for a neglected wife. Now back to that bitch that got away. Her name is Selena Holmes. She's in her 30s and hotter than a jet engine. She has a pretty figure and keeps herself in shape. I first noticed her when she was running on the treadmill at the gym. She had shoulder-length brown hair and a ponytail that swayed from side to side as she ran. Her green eyes were glued to the TV in front of her. Her soft lips moved the words of the song she was listening to on her headphones. She was stunning. I immediately realized that I wanted her. No, I had to have it. I started my campaign. I started striking up conversations with her while working, asking her opinion on things in order to get close enough for her to accidentally brush against me. I even accidentally crashed into her and sang and grabbed her before she fell to the floor. I strived for maximum physical contact. The problem I had was that it wasn't vulnerable. No matter what I did, I could never get her to talk about anything other than work. I couldn't get her to open up about her personal life. She seemed content and happy with her life. Girls who are happy with their home life rarely talk about it. Who wants to hear how great someone's relationship is going? People usually talk about gossip because everyone wants to know what's wrong in others' lives. The other problem was that she seemed to be immune to my appearance. She was always nice and professional, but didn't give me the vibe I get from ripe fruit. She didn't hold my gaze for that split second longer that would indicate she was interested. She didn't touch me when we talked closely. When we talked, she would say what needed to be said and move on to the next task. I started sleeping with another nurse who was always by her side, Wilma. Wilma was quite nice, but older than us. She wasn't fat, but her round face told me she was chubby. She had nice breasts and was probably hiding a round ass under her scrubs. She had curly red hair and a face covered in freckles. She looked like she would be bored in bed, but I quickly learned that she was one of those untapped wells. She had all this repressed sexuality just waiting to come out. I found out that she had this loser husband who was self-pleasuring himself on an Asian adult film instead of minding his own business. This guy must be the dumbest bastard on earth because his wife was a premium girlfriend. She was just ripe for the taking. She was so hungry for attention that I didn't have to use most of the rules to get her. I just told her one day that she makes scrubs look like they belong in Victoria's Secrets, and she practically forced herself on me in one of the restrooms. Over time, I almost gave up on Selena. She didn't fall for tricks. Besides, Wilma and a couple of the other nurses were quite draining on me. I was almost ready to give up when the sex gods smiled on me. That blessing came in the form of Doug. Doug was one of our long-term patients. He was involved in an accident that left him in a coma for 3 weeks. When he came to, he had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old child. Now, Doug was as tall as me, but twice as wide as me. He looked a little like Stone Cold Steve Austin, but with less muscle. Simply put, Doug was a big guy. He was usually nice and obedient to all the employees. He never raised his voice, never quarreled, and was very gentle. He always listened and was grateful for every little thing you did for him. But Doug was like those lions that are kept in captivity. After years of being fed steaks and played with, you forget that these cats are wild animals. One day Doug got horny. I don't know what made him so angry, but he felt the heat. After all, he was still a man. Well, Nurse Holmes came into the room to give him the pills and found him in the act of self-gratification. He didn't even try to hide it. He saw Selena's slender body and rushed at her. All I heard was screaming. I ran into the room and found Doug trying to pull off her panties. She held them with one hand, trying to keep up appearances, while with the other hand she tried to keep him at arm's length. I managed to pull Doug away from her. Unfortunately for me, this thug attacked me and started throwing me around the room. I didn't want to hurt the poor guy, but I was almost ready to hit him. Luckily, Nurse Holmes was able to give him a calming injection that sent him to sleep. She was so scared that I took her to the cafeteria for coffee. She was extremely grateful that I got beat up trying to save her. Naturally, once the conversation turned to my time with the Marines, which allowed me to open the door to learning more about her. She didn't tell me everything, but I was able to find an approach. This was the start of many conversations. Selena wasn't as open about her marriage as I would have liked. She never directly told me anything that could help me get a foothold in her mind. But she was giving clues without even realizing it. I had to pay close attention to her words. I got the impression that she didn't feel sexy around her husband. It was just a guess, but it was all I had. I started working on this. I started complimenting her on her medical attire. When she did something new with her hair, I talked about it. I asked what perfume she wore and remembered it. But it still didn't work out for me. She thanked him for his attention, but it didn't bother her. The problem was that she already knew all these things about herself. Complimenting her was like telling her that the hospital was full of sick people. She answered me with a slight smile, and that was all. The cutie guy route was falling apart. I was running out of options until one day I came at her from the other side. We were on break and sitting in the lounge. I don't know what came over me, but I just blurted out, "You act so professional all the time, but I bet you're a badass bitch when the lights go out." She looked at me with a mocking smile and said, "Wouldn't you like to know?" I finally found the approach. Now this bitch is mine. I wondered what it tasted like. And the games began. I flirted with her shamelessly. She flirted back at me. It became a game where everyone tried to come up with the wittiest line. It was fun. While this was fun, it also became annoying. My progress seemed to be stuck at the flirting stage. Months passed, and I was no closer to finalizing the deal with her. Every time I tried to get physical, she stopped me. But then she always left the door ajar, just enough to encourage me to keep flirting. Let me give you an example. One day, we were both in the storeroom. She was trying to get a box from the top shelf. She reached up, leaving her slender body unprotected. She was having difficulty with the box, so I offered to help. I got too close to her and took the box from her hands. At the same moment, I pressed my body to hers. I got horny, and I made sure she felt it. She turned abruptly to face me. She put her hand on my chest and pushed me back. She didn't push me hard, but gave me a gentle push to create some distance between us. Then she said, "Attention, soldier. I need you to put those weapons away." I looked her in the eyes and said, "I must always keep my weapon ready. I never know when I'll need it." She looked at me with those same quizzical eyes she sometimes has and said, "Well, you'll never use it on me in the pantry." Then she took the box and left. Now I was confused. Does this mean I have no chance at all, or is the pantry just not the right place? Another time I told her I would make her beg. Again, those mocking eyes flashed, and she told me, "Trust me, if you make me beg, then you'll know what a bad bitch I really am. Unfortunately, I'm not begging." Then she shrugged and walked away. Well, that sounded like an invitation, didn't it? I started thinking about her obsessively. I analyzed every conversation we had, trying to determine whether it was a step forward or everything was the same. I saw her walking down the corridors and tried to get her attention. She never started our flirting sessions. She always answered with that mocking expression. It drove me crazy. I invited her to come to my apartment many times. She always answered the same way. She laughed and playfully refused, but she did not speak. It's like it will never happen. One day, I wanted her so badly that I could taste her. We finished our shift and walked to our cars. I threw everything I had at her, trying to lure her to my home. I knew that if I could get her to come with me, I would have home advantage. I was sure she would scratch my back and wrap her legs around me. If only I could lure her there. She just lightly touched my face, got into the car, and drove away. Just. I could still feel her hand on my face. I wrote her a message. This was the last attempt. Brian, you should have come to me today. Selene, you know I can't do this. Brian, why? Selene, because my husband will wonder where I am. Brian, make up an excuse. Selene, why should I risk it? What's in it for me? Brian, best sex of your life. Selene, you're confident. I wonder if these are all just words. Brian, there's only one way to find out. I waited for a response text, but never received one. I sighed and walked gloomily to my car. I tried to do anything to avoid thinking about her. I could have invited another woman to relieve the tension, but I didn't want that. Have you ever had one of those moments when you want something so specific that nothing else will satisfy you? It's like waking up in the morning craving pancakes. Maybe you even dreamed about pancakes, so you go to the kitchen only to find that you've run out of pancake mix. Now you could probably make eggs and toast, but you were so craving pancakes that nothing else would do. That's how I felt. Eventually, I gave in and began to satisfy myself. Then I had a thought. It was my last chance, but I had to do something. I took a photo and sent an intimate photo to Selena. Minutes pre-rushed to the clock. I never received an answer. I checked the message to make sure it was delivered. She may not have checked her phone yet. I was about to call her, but thought better of it. What if her husband answers? It would be unpleasant. So I finished what I started. After turning on my laptop and spending time with porn stars who reminded me of Selena Dillon Ryder with much smaller breasts, I was finally able to fall asleep. The next morning, I woke up even more upset than usual. I was also disappointed in myself. What the hell was I doing? I should have moved on to another woman months ago. If I didn't know better, I would have thought she was deliberately pulling my leg. I was thinking, no, girls are not that smart. I know there are girls who love to tease guys, but no woman has ever done this to me. I'm not the guy they want to pick up and throw away. I'm the prize. I'm a big bass, not some pathetic roach. I'm the one they take pictures with and show off to their friends, telling exaggerated stories about how I almost broke the fishing line. She wants what I have. I know it. I just need to create the perfect situation to remove all the usual disturbances. If only I could have persuaded her to come to me last night. I had to come up with a plan. This spontaneous action began to irritate me, but I had no idea how to get her to come to me in a place that would remove all her excuses. She wasn't the kind of woman who would give me quick sex in the closet or closet. I needed to persuade her to take a day off. That way, I'd have a whole day to work on it without fear of anyone getting suspicious. I imagined myself discussing with her the idea of giving us a day off together, so that we can have fun as friends. Once I was able to get her out of her work clothes, I was sure that my cuteness would work like a spell. Unfortunately, fate is a sneaky thing. She didn't come to work that day. I was planning this whole monologue about what we should do and how we should do it, and the damn bitch got sick. Not only were my plans put on hold, but I also had to take care of her patients as we were unable to find a temporary agency nurse on such short notice. Crap, I was wondering how she reacted when she saw my intimate photo. I'm sure she was horny. Now that she knew what she was dealing with, she had to agree to spend the day with me. I didn't have a chance to write to her until I was at dinner. I sent her 4 messages and received no response. As I walked back to my floor, I had an ominous feeling about my chances with Selena. Until now, we have been texting back and forth regularly. It can't be an accident that she stopped responding the day after I sent her the photo. Something went wrong. I wondered if she told her husband. No, there's no way she would have done that. It would expose her too. There must be another explanation. Then it dawned on me. She was embarrassed by how much it turned her on. Perhaps she had sex with her husband last night while dreaming about me, and it scared her. It had to be like this. I have to be careful to make her feel comfortable with her feelings. I can be patient. Meanwhile, I persuaded Wilma to go into the pantry. She barely resisted. In fact, the only reason she resisted was because she had to answer a patient call. As soon as she finished, she met me in the storage room ready for sex. We did this for 10 minutes. When I finished, I made her give me her panties. You can't expect me to walk around without panties after you fucked me like that. I'll smell like sex for the rest of my shift. How can I take care of patients in this state? I just told her how much it turns me on, knowing that everyone can smell her. I also told her that I would probably want her again after my shift, thinking about it. I walked out of the closet with a smile on my face and a pair of panties in my pocket. Although it was a good adventure, my thoughts went back to Selena. I wished Selena was as submissive. Miss My Stink No Smell would never let me force her to do what Wilma does. I wonder how far I could go with Wilma. I finished the rest of my shift without any problems. I had sex with Wilma in the back seat of her station wagon. I almost got horny again when I thought about what would happen if her husband accidentally looked in the back seat. Would he have known that he was being framed? He would probably get aroused knowing that she was properly taken. One thing was certain. He was a loser. This poor woman was so hungry for attention that all I had to do was kiss her neck to get her excited. I definitely have to ask about the pills the next day. I sent Selena another message when I got home. That's when I realized something was wrong. She changed her number. Crap. When she finally came to work, she walked right through me as if I were invisible. If I entered the room, she would leave. If I tried to talk to her, she would turn around and start talking to someone else. I thought it would thaw in a couple of weeks, but I was wrong. The tension between us became so thick that it became difficult to breathe when we were both in the same room. Whenever she had to talk to me, she could barely speak a sentence of more than 5 words. Our flirting stopped completely. I could only guess that she was angry with me for some reason. What the hell did I do? I needed to find out. I waited until she went into the closet and followed her. I closed the door behind us. She turned around abruptly and faced me, but didn't say anything. Instead, she simply looked at me with eyes full of mockery. Did I do something wrong? I asked as sincerely as possible. I decided that now I needed to be Brian the good guy and not Brian the seducer. I even adopted a puppy dog expression. She didn't soften. In fact, she just sat there, looking at me with eyes full of mockery. I need to get back to work, Brian, she said in an indifferent, monotone voice. Then she pushed past me, opened the door, and left me completely bewildered. I tried to engage her in conversation, but this bitch just kept dodging me and ignoring me. I started to get angry. Luckily, I was able to persuade Wilma to satisfy me in one of the toilets. I enjoyed it, but my heart wasn't in it. Wilma noticed this. "What happened, dear?" she asked in a voice that sounded alarmingly like her friend's. She touched my cheek lovingly. I think she was trying to console me, but it backfired. These were signs that our fun was coming to an end. The time for that conversation was approaching, and we needed to part ways. But I had to put it aside for a minute because I needed her. I decided I could use her to find out what was going on with Selena. Sorry, Freckles. I'm just a little confused. Haven't you noticed how Selena treats me like I have leprosy? I tried to talk to her, but she keeps ignoring me. I watched as Wilma's face darkened with jealousy when I mentioned Selena. Her eyes pierced me for a few seconds. That's when he realized it was time to end this. "Why do you care whether Selena makes you angry or not?" she shouted so loudly that it was reflected from the walls. I know they heard us from outside the toilet. I took action to calm this explosive girl. "Freckle, calm down. I just wanted to know what I did to her. We need to work together, and it's hard when she ignores me. You have no reason to be jealous of Selena. You are the only one who receives my love." I conveniently left out the words "on this floor." This was implied. Her face brightened, and she kissed me on the lips. It took all my strength not to throw up. I knew where that mouth was just a few minutes ago. "I'll find out, baby," she said with a wink. With that, she left the toilet. I don't know what Wilma said to Selena, but I thought I hit the jackpot when I saw her waiting for me in my car. I smiled to myself as I slowly made my way there, and I thought my car couldn't look any better. Now I know she's not even 100 miles away from what she looks like when you're next to her. I winked at her with my flirtatious smile. I expected her to laugh and flirt back. but what I got was like a bucket of cold water on my head. She just stood there, looking at me with icy eyes. Her arms were crossed over her chest. My smile froze on my face. She didn't come to restore our relationship. She had something on her mind that she needed to get out. Suddenly, I got angry. "Selena, what the hell? Why are you such a bitch?" I blurted out these words. I could no longer contain my feelings. I've been stalking this girl for a year, and now I'm done. I was no longer going to be her obedient dog. "Do you have Wilma, Brian?" Suddenly, she asked this question. This was the last thing I expected. I grinned at her and nodded in understanding. This bitch was jealous. "What did that get you?" I asked confidently. She didn't say anything. She just looked at me. I leaned over and quietly asked, "Are you jealous?" Her chin jerked back when I said this. Then she half smiled, as if what I said had amused her. "Do you think it's because of jealousy?" Again, I was confused. I didn't know what to think. She stood there, looking at me like I was a stupid child who didn't understand anything. To the fuck with her. "What the hell do you want from me, Selena?" She suddenly became serious again. "I want you to stop sleeping with Wilma, Brian. She's going through a rough time in her marriage right now. What you're doing to her is only making things worse." Her face softened. For a minute, I saw the Selena I had been chasing for so long. She looked at me as if she hoped I understood what she was saying. "She really thinks you're in love with her. She told me she hopes to leave her husband so she can be with you." I don't know what happened to me at that moment. I think I was even more hurt that she wasn't jealous than I wanted to admit. Whatever it was, it made me give up everything. I know that at this moment I should have felt bad, perhaps even feel regret, but I didn't feel it. And what? She looked at me as if I was Lucifer himself. I did not care. To hell with her and Wilma. I waved her off and walked past. I'm done pretending for this arrogant girl. It was obvious that I had no chance with her, so I no longer needed the nice guy mask. "You know, Brian, you're a piece of shit," I heard her say from behind me. I opened my car door to get in. Selena slammed it shut and squeezed between me and the car. She obviously wasn't finished yet. "You walk around this hospital with your war stories and arrogant attitude and think you have the right to play with lives. You've slept with everyone and you don't care about the people you hurt." Her words were filled with venom. If I still wanted her, I might have backed down. But now this girl was in my rear mirror. "Listen, Selena, what I do is none of your business. I can have whoever I want, whenever I want. If I want her, I'll do it. In fact, I've already done this. Many times. This stupid bitch even satisfied me in the toilet this afternoon. So why don't you go home to your cowardly husband and—" Here I didn't even have time to finish when this bitch hit me. She didn't even hit me like a girl. She clenched her fist and punched so hard that I saw stars. "Don't ever talk about my husband, you fuck." I stood there stunned. I couldn't believe that such a blow could come from such a small body. "You are no match for my husband. Don't think that my temporary insanity is proof that you are in any way up to his level." With these words, she spat in my face and left. "Fuck you, bitch," I shouted after her. I realized that the pain in my jaw was not going away. How hard did that bitch hit me? She stopped and turned around. "By the way, I received your message with an intimate photo. I have to say, after all your chatter, I'm disappointed. After what I receive from my husband every night, I'm not impressed with yours." With these words, she left. Crap, crap, crap. My jaw hurts. If I wasn't in shock, I could have hurt that bitch. But I have to admit, I like her courage. Suddenly, I heard a loud thud. I turned around and saw a crazy guy with a baseball bat hitting my pride and joy. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted at him as he struck again. Boom. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I shouted at him. He stopped and looked at me through his mentally empty eyes. His face was stained with tears. When I looked at him, I saw an empty shell of a man. "You need to get away from my car." He didn't even answer me. Instead, he just started smashing my car even more. He worked on my windshield, leaving a web of cracks. I rushed at him to knock him off legs, but this guy turned around and started beating me up like John Phoenix in the movie Signs. I tried to protect my face, but he hit me in the ribs. When I tried to protect my ribs, he hit me in the face. Soon I found myself on the ground, struggling for consciousness. "You took her from me, you bastard, and you don't care about her," he shouted between blows. Then I realized who he was. It was Wilma's husband. "I heard everything you said to that woman. How could you do this? How could you do this to her?" The last thing I remember is him kicking me in the face. I spent a week in the hospital. I had 2 broken ribs, a cracked skull, and a broken nose. I also had a crack in my jaw, but this freak didn't hit me in the jaw. Selena did it. The police arrested Wilma's husband. In fact, he was placed under observation due to suicide concerns. The guy constantly said that he no longer had a reason to live. Wilma came to see me when I was in the hospital. I thought she would look after me while I recovered, but that didn't happen. Her husband told her everything I told Selena. There was no word for broken, she was simply broken. "Selena told me to stay away from you. She said you were just a predator. I told her you loved me. I defended you. Now I'm not in a marriage. My kids think I'm a cheater and my husband is awaiting trial." I couldn't look at her. Her eyes were full of pain. "Why, Brian? What did I do to make you do this to me?" I couldn't answer her. I was silent until she left the room. She quit the next day. Selena was transferred to another floor. I was glad about this. I couldn't look at her. She was the only one for whom I broke my rules. I had to give it up. But I continued to chase her. I still think I had a chance to win her. I found out later that it was my photograph that ruined my chances. I knew this was a bad idea. I tried to create discord between her and her old man, but only brought them closer. Another funny thing about karma. That night when I slept with Wilma in her car was the night her husband first suspected her of cheating. He went out to the car to get a child seat because he needed it the next day. He found the car smelling like sex, a wet spot on the seat, and a child seat in the trunk. The irony is that I was caught and beaten because I was too selfish to have sex with her in my car. When he confronted Wilma about this, she told him that she was in love with me and that I would be with her as soon as she got divorced. She told him that I was her true love. It was love at first sight. I wasn't fired, but I only lasted a few months. Rumors about me and Wilma spread like fire. Nobody wanted to communicate with me. I became in exile. I think Selena told everyone, but I'm not sure. I saw her sitting at the dining room table with a group of nurses from the new floor. They all looked at me with contempt when they spoke to her. She didn't even try to pretend that they weren't talking about me. I eventually turned in my resignation and found a job at another hospital. I tried to forget Selena and Wilma, but they never left my thoughts. The real-life Tony and Selena are still happily married. She says she learned a lot about herself during that time. They went to counseling, and she learned to have self-confidence without needing anyone's attention. She openly admits that she was a very shallow and vain person, and she realized what a treasure she has in Tony. There was an occasion when my wife and I were on a picnic with them, and I jokingly asked him, "What is it like to be married to a woman who is too good for you?" Without hesitation, Selena replied, "How can he know that? His wife is the one who won the lottery." I know some people would like me to embarrass her in this story, but she honestly didn't deserve it. They have been married for 16 years.